In the glittering corridors of Silicon Valley, power is measured not by the lives you touch, but by the empires you build. Dominic Hayes stood as a paragon of this world, a man who carved his name into the fabric of innovation. But at what cost? Behind the glass walls of his sprawling empire, there was another story, one of love, betrayal, and redemption waiting to be written. On a chilly autumn night, as the lights of San Francisco twinkled like a million unspoken promises, Serena Hayes found herself cast into the cold, a single suitcase clutched tightly in her trembling hands. She was no longer the celebrated wife of a tech mogul. She was a woman abandoned, carrying more than just the weight of her shattered marriage. Inside her, a heartbeat whispered a different story, a promise that would not be broken. We will rise again. But this isn't a story about power reclaimed or vengeance served cold. It's a tale of resilience, a mother's love, and the strength to rebuild when everything seems lost. As Serena steps into the quiet streets of Sweet Auburn, Atlanta, she embarks on a journey not only to heal, but to inspire. Meanwhile, far from the hum of sewing machines and modest homes, Dominic begins his own descent, a slow unraveling of the life he once held so tightly. In this story, the past and present collide in a tapestry of emotions, and the ultimate question emerges. When everything you've built crumbles, what remains? The city of San Francisco shimmered under the cloak of a crisp October night, its streets alive with the hum of innovation and ambition. Inside a sprawling, glass-walled mansion overlooking the bay, Dominic Hayes lounged in a leather chair, the glow of his phone reflecting off his sharp features. Messages pinged relentlessly, investors, board members, journalists, all seeking his attention. Dominic thrived in this chaos. It was the pulse of power, the essence of his being. But tonight, the air was different. It was heavy, charged with an unseen tension. Across the room stood Serena Hayes, her figure silhouetted against the floor-to-ceiling windows. The elegance that once defined her seemed muted now, replaced by a quiet resolve. "Dominic," she began, her voice steady but edged with exhaustion. "We need to talk." Dominic barely looked up. "Serena, not now. I'm in the middle of something important." She took a deep breath, clutching the edge of the sleek marble table between them. "This is important. We've become strangers in our own home. You've buried yourself in your work, and I—" He cut her off, his voice sharp. "Enough, Serena. Oh, you don't understand what it takes to keep this empire running. You've been a burden on me, on this company." The words hit her like a physical blow, but she held her ground. "A burden?" she whispered, her voice cracking under the weight of disbelief. "Dominic, I stood by you when you were nothing. I believed in you when no one else did." Dominic stood, towering over her, his expression cold. "And I repaid you. Look around, Serena. You live in luxury because of me. But it's not enough anymore. You're not enough anymore." Silence fell between them, thick and suffocating. Serena felt the walls of their opulent home closing in. The once beautiful space, now a gilded cage. Her gaze drifted to the sleek photographs lining the walls, smiling faces, magazine covers, moments that felt like they belonged to someone else. Finally, Dominic turned away. "Pack your things and leave by morning. I'll have the papers sent over." Serena stood frozen, her mind reeling. But as the initial shock wore off, something inside her shifted. She straightened her back, her trembling hands finding strength and resolve. Without a word, she turned and walked to the master bedroom, her footsteps echoing through the empty halls. Hours later, as dawn began to break, Serena emerged into the crisp morning air. A single suitcase rested at her feet, and her hand instinctively moved to her abdomen, cradling the faint beginnings of life. Her eyes burned with unshed tears, but her heart held a defiant promise. "We will rise again," she whispered, the words carried away by the wind. As the city began to stir, Serena hailed a cab and gave the driver an address she hadn't spoken in years: Sweet Auburn, Atlanta. The streets of Sweet Auburn exuded a quiet charm, steeped in the weight of history. Once a thriving hub of Black culture and business, the Atlanta neighborhood bore the scars of time, but its spirit remained unbroken. As Serena Hayes stepped out of the cab, the sights and sounds of her childhood came rushing back. The modest homes, the aroma of collard greens wafting from open windows, the soft rhythm of gospel music. It all felt both familiar and foreign. She tightened her grip on her suitcase, glancing down at her growing belly. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about creating a life worth living. Her mother, Evelyn Moore, stood on the porch of a small but lovingly maintained home. Despite her graying hair and the lines etched by years of hard work, Evelyn's presence was as strong as Serena remembered. As Serena approached, Evelyn folded her arms, her sharp eyes scanning her daughter. "Serena," Evelyn said, her voice equal parts stern and warm. "You're thinner than I remember." Serena managed a small smile. Life in San Francisco doesn't leave much room for home cooking. Evelyn pulled her into a firm embrace, the kind Serena hadn't felt in years. "Well, you're home now. Let's get you inside." The days that followed were a blur of adjustments. Evelyn's home was a far cry from the marble halls and towering ceilings Serena had grown accustomed to. Yet, its simplicity offered a strange comfort. Serena spent her mornings cleaning and organizing, a ritual that helped her regain a sense of control. By afternoon, she explored the neighborhood, reconnecting with its rhythms and learning to see it through the eyes of an adult. One day, while walking past a community bulletin board, Serena noticed a flyer. "Textile workers needed. Thompson Fabrics." It was a far cry from the glamorous life she'd once envisioned, but she folded the flyer and slipped it into her pocket. The next morning, she stood outside Thompson Fabrics, a sprawling building that hummed with activity. Inside, rows of workers bent over sewing machines, their hands moving with practiced precision. At the head of the room was Mrs. Caroline Thompson, a tall woman with sharp features softened by a kind smile. She looked up as Serena entered. "You must be here for the job," Mrs. Thompson said, her voice warm but commanding. "Yes," Serena replied, her voice steady despite the nervous flutter in her chest. "I'm Serena Hayes." Mrs. Thompson studied her for a moment before nodding. "We don't judge books by their covers here. Can you sew?" "I can learn." Mrs. Thompson's smile widened. "Good answer. Let's see what you've got." The work was grueling. Serena's hands, unaccustomed to the repetitive motion of sewing, ached by the end of each day. Her co-workers, a mix of seasoned seamstresses and younger women juggling their own struggles, were initially wary of the newcomer. Whispers followed her through the factory, rumors about her polished demeanor and mysterious past. But Serena kept her head down, determined to prove herself. Her evenings were spent sketching designs in a notebook, a habit she'd picked up years ago, but never pursued. The sketches were rough, but they carried a spark of creativity she hadn't felt in years. One evening, Evelyn noticed her bent over the notebook at the kitchen table. "Ah, those are good," Evelyn said, peering over Serena's shoulder. "Why don't you do something with them?" "I don't even know where to start." "Start where you are, Serena. Isn't that what you always told yourself?" Serena nodded, the words igniting a flicker of hope. It was at a community event a few weeks later that Serena met Caleb Wright. The gathering was held at a small community center, the walls lined with photographs of the neighborhood's history. Caleb, A tall man with kind eyes and a quiet strength was leading a workshop on engineering and design for local kids. Serena lingered at the back, watching as he patiently explained the principles of architecture to a group of wide-eyed children. After the session, Caleb noticed her and approached. "You're new around here," he said, extending a hand. "I'm Caleb Wright." "Serena Hayes," she replied, shaking his hand. "I just moved back to the neighborhood." Caleb's gaze lingered on her, as if searching for something beneath the surface. "What brings you to a design workshop?" "I used to sketch," Serena admitted, "but I haven't done much with it." Caleb's smile was encouraging. "Maybe it's time to start again." Meanwhile, across the country, Dominic Hayes was facing battles of his own. The tech world that once hailed him as a visionary was turning against him. A scandal involving questionable labor practices at Hayes Innovations had surfaced, leading to an avalanche of bad press. Board members whispered of replacements, and investors began pulling out. At a glitzy tech gala, Dominic's carefully crafted image took another blow. A journalist confronted him with rumors of his affair with a young assistant, Alana Reed. The room buzzed with murmurs as Dominic's face hardened, his once unshakable confidence cracking under the weight of public scrutiny. That night, as he sat alone in his glass-walled office, Dominic found himself staring at a photo on his desk. It was from the early days, he and Serena, on their first anniversary, their smiles radiant with untainted joy. He shoved the photo into a drawer, burying the memory but unable to escape the guilt that lingered. Back in Sweet Auburn, Serena's resilience began to take root. Mrs. Thompson, impressed by Serena's determination, offered her a small workspace in the factory to experiment with her designs. Serena hesitated at first, unsure if she was ready to take the leap. But Caleb's words echoed in her mind. "Dreams aren't built overnight, Serena, but they can start today." Her first designs were simple, baby clothes inspired by her son, Liam. The pieces caught the attention of her coworkers, who admired the delicate embroidery and thoughtful details. Slowly, Serena began to feel a spark of pride, a reminder that she was more than her past. One evening, as she put Liam to bed, she whispered the same promise she'd made months ago. "We will rise again." The scent of freshly baked bread from the corner bakery mingled with the crisp morning air as Serena Hayes walked to Thompson Fabrics. The familiar rhythm of Sweet Auburn began to seep into her soul, soothing the raw wounds of her past. But today wasn't just another day at the factory. It was the day she would present her first designs to Mrs. Caroline Thompson. The thought both thrilled and terrified her. Clutching a neatly folded bundle of her handmade baby clothes, Serena stepped into the bustling factory. The hum of sewing machines and chatter among workers momentarily eased her nerves. She made her way to Mrs. Thompson's office, her heart pounding with anticipation. Mrs. Thompson was reviewing paperwork when Serena knocked softly on the door. "Come in," she called without looking up. When she saw Serena standing nervously with the bundle in her hands, a smile crossed her face. "Let's see what you've got," Mrs. Thompson said, motioning for Serena to sit. Serena unfolded the baby clothes, her hands trembling slightly. Each piece was crafted with care, delicate stitching, intricate embroidery, and thoughtful designs that balanced functionality with charm. Mrs. Thompson examined them in silence, her sharp eyes missing nothing. After what felt like an eternity, Mrs. Thompson looked up. "These are good," she said, her tone firm. "Very good. You have an eye for detail and a sense of what people want." Serena exhaled a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. "Thank you," she said softly. "But good isn't enough," Mrs. Thompson continued. "If you want to make a mark, You need to push boundaries. Tell a story with your work. Make people feel something. Her words struck a chord with Serena. She nodded, determined to rise to the challenge. Life at the factory wasn't easy. While Mrs. Thompson's approval gave Serena a boost, not everyone shared her enthusiasm. Some of the workers, already wary of her polished demeanor, whispered behind her back, "She thinks she's better than us," one woman muttered as Serena walked by. "Probably trying to get special treatment," another added. Serena pretended not to hear, but the words stung. At lunch, she sat alone, sketching designs in her notebook and wondering if she would ever truly belong. One evening, Caleb Wright invited Serena to the community center, where he taught design workshops. The center was a hub of activity, filled with children and teens eager to learn. Serena watched as Caleb explained architectural principles, his passion shining through every word. After the session, Caleb approached her with his signature warm smile. "You look like you've had a rough day," he said, handing her a cup of coffee. Serena chuckled softly. "Rough week, actually." "Let me guess. Factory politics?" She nodded, surprised at how easily he saw through her. Caleb gestured to a table covered in blueprints and sketches. "You know, I didn't always have it easy either. When I started teaching here, people doubted me, thought I was wasting my time. But you can't let that stop you. You've got talent, Serena. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." His words, coupled with his unwavering belief in her, reignited her resolve. Across the country, Dominic Hayes was spiraling. The scandal surrounding his affair had made national headlines, and Hayes' Innovations was losing its luster. Investors were pulling out, and the board was demanding answers. In his sleek San Francisco office, Dominic stared at the city skyline, nursing a glass of whiskey. His assistant, Alana Reed, stood hesitantly by the door. "Ah, Dominic," she said cautiously. "The board wants a statement. They're threatening to remove you." As CEO, Dominic's jaw tightened. "Let them try," he said coldly. But even as he spoke, doubt gnawed at him. For the first time in his life, he wasn't sure if he could fix what he'd broken. Back in Sweet Auburn, Serena poured her heart into her designs, inspired by Mrs. Thompson's challenge to tell a story. She created a line of baby clothes that celebrated resilience and motherhood, drawing from her own experiences. Each piece was named after a moment of strength in her journey. Phoenix Rising, Evelyn's Embrace, Liam's Light. When she presented the new designs to Mrs. Thompson, the older woman was visibly impressed. "Now this," she said, holding up a onesie with intricate embroidery of a phoenix, "is what I'm talking about. These pieces have soul." Mrs. Thompson offered Serena a small display area in the factory's storefront to showcase her work. It was a modest start, but for Serena, it felt like the first step toward something bigger. Serena's friendship with Caleb deepened as they spent more time together. He often stopped by the factory to check on her progress, offering words of encouragement and practical advice. On weekends, he invited her and Liam to community events, where they began to feel like part of the Sweet Auburn family. One evening, as they walked home from a neighborhood potluck, Caleb turned to Serena. "You're doing great, you know." Serena smiled. "I'm trying." "No," Caleb said, his voice earnest. "You're succeeding. Don't forget that." Serena's growing confidence was met with an unexpected challenge. One afternoon, she noticed a black SUV parked near her house. It lingered for hours, its windows tinted so dark she couldn't see who was inside. The unease settled in her stomach like a stone. When she mentioned it to Caleb, his expression darkened. "You think it's Dominic?" "I don't know," Serena admitted. "But it's not a coincidence. Caleb offered to stay with her that night, and she reluctantly agreed. As they sat on the porch, watching the SUV from a distance, Serena realized how much she had come to rely on him. For the first time in years, she felt like she wasn't facing her battles alone. Despite the looming threat, Serena refused to let fear dictate her life. With Caleb and Mrs. Thompson's support, she began to dream bigger. She envisioned Heritage by Serena, not just as a clothing line, but as a movement, a celebration of strength, resilience, and community. One night, as she tucked Liam into bed, he looked up at her with wide, curious eyes. "Mommy, are you happy?" The question caught her off guard. She thought of all the struggles she had faced, the sacrifices she had made, and the road that still lay ahead. Then she smiled, brushing a strand of hair from his forehead. "I'm getting there," she said, "one step at a time." The once unshakable foundation of Dominic Hayes's empire was crumbling. The media storm ignited by the revelation of his affair with Alana Reed had spiraled out of control. News outlets dissected every aspect of Dominic's life, his ruthless ambition, his controversial business decisions, and now, his personal failures. In his glass-walled office and at Hayes Innovations, Dominic sat hunched over his desk, a man consumed by desperation. The board of directors had called for an emergency meeting to discuss his future as CEO. He could feel the tides turning against him, his once loyal allies now circling like vultures. "Mr. Hayes," his assistant hesitated at the door, "the board is ready for you." Dominic adjusted his tie, plastering on a mask of confidence he no longer felt. He strode into the boardroom, the weight of judgment heavy in the air. The meeting began with sharp criticisms and escalating demands for his resignation. Dominic's attempts to defend himself fell flat, his arrogance no longer enough to shield him. In Sweet Auburn, Serena Hayes was beginning to find her rhythm. The boutique display of her clothing line, Heritage by Serena, had become a modest success. Local mothers flocked to the factory storefront, drawn by the unique, heartfelt designs. Mrs. Thompson even hinted at expanding Serena's workspace if sales continued to grow. Yet, even amid her budding triumph, shadows lingered. The mysterious black SUV had reappeared, parked just a block away from her house. Caleb Wright had taken notice, doubling down on his protective presence. One evening, as they shared a quiet dinner, Serena voiced her concerns. "Do you think it's Dominic?" she asked, her voice tinged with unease. Caleb frowned. "It's possible. He's desperate enough to try anything right now." Serena's mind raced. Could Dominic really stoop so low as to invade her new life? She pushed the thought aside, focusing instead on the joy of watching Liam grow and thrive. The next morning, Serena arrived at the factory to find an unexpected visitor waiting for her. Alana Reed stood near the entrance, her sharp features softened by an air of nervousness. Serena's heart sank. She hadn't seen Alana since the night Dominic had thrown her out. "What are you doing here?" Serena asked, her voice guarded. "I need to talk to you," Alana said. "It's about Dominic." Reluctantly, Serena led her to a quiet corner of the factory. Alana hesitated before speaking, her voice barely above a whisper. "Dominic's losing control. He's been hiring investigators to follow you. He's trying to find leverage, something he can use to keep you quiet." Serena's blood ran cold. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I'm done with him," Alana said, her eyes glistening with tears. "He used me, just like he used you. I thought I mattered to him, but I was just another pawn." Serena felt a pang of sympathy, but quickly hardened herself. "What do you expect me to do with this information?" "Protect yourself," Alana said. "And your son. Dominic won't stop until he gets what he wants." That evening, Serena confided in Caleb about Alana's warning. His reaction was immediate and fierce. "We need to go to the police," he said. "If Dominic is stalking you, he's crossing a line." "And say what?" Serena countered. "That my ex-husband, a powerful tech mogul, is spying on me? They'll laugh me out of the station." Caleb's jaw tightened. "Then we'll find another way. You're not facing this alone, Serena." His unwavering support was a balm to her fears. Together, they began documenting every suspicious incident, preparing to fight back if necessary. Meanwhile, in San Francisco, Dominic's downfall continued to accelerate. A damning article by investigative journalist Angela Pierce revealed unethical practices at Hayes Innovations, from underpaid workers in overseas factories to manipulated stock prices. The article painted Dominic as a man consumed by greed, willing to sacrifice anything, including his humanity, for success. The public backlash was swift and unforgiving. Protests erupted outside Hayes Innovations headquarters, demanding accountability. Investors fled in droves, and the company's stock plummeted. Dominic's carefully curated image of a visionary leader lay in tatters. But the worst blow came when Angela Pierce reached out to Serena for an interview. At first, Serena was hesitant. She didn't want to expose Liam to more scrutiny or reopen old wounds. But Caleb urged her to consider the bigger picture. "People need to know the truth," he said. "If you speak out, you could help others who've been hurt by Dominic." After days of soul-searching, Serena agreed. She met Angela Pierce at a local cafe, her hands trembling as she recounted her story. She spoke of the emotional abuse, the betrayal, and the strength it took to rebuild her life. The resulting article, titled "Rising from the Ashes: The Untold Story of Serena Hayes," was a sensation. It painted Serena as a beacon of resilience, contrasting sharply with Dominic's image of corruption and deceit. The article marked a turning point for Serena. Orders for her clothing line surged as people across the country connected with her story. Mrs. Thompson expanded her workspace, and Caleb introduced her to a network of investors interested in sustainable fashion. But the success also brought new challenges. Dominic's legal team sent Serena a cease and desist letter, accusing her of defamation. Serena refused to back down, hiring her own lawyer to counter the threats. "You're stronger than he ever gave you credit for," Caleb told her one evening, as they reviewed legal documents. "Don't let him scare you." "I won't," Serena said firmly. For the first time, she felt like she was truly in control of her destiny. Desperate to salvage what remained of his empire, Dominic reached out to Serena. He sent her a letter, apologizing for his actions and asking to meet. Serena read the letter with a mix of anger and disbelief. "Do you think he's sincere?" Caleb asked when she showed him the letter. "I don't know," Serena admitted, "but I'm not ready to forgive him." Caleb nodded. "Then don't. Not until he earns it." As Serena continued to build her brand, she also began giving back to the Sweet Auburn community. She partnered with Mrs. Thompson to offer sewing classes at the factory, empowering other women to pursue their dreams. At one of these classes, a young woman approached Serena with tears in her eyes. "Thank you," she said. "You've shown me that it's possible to start over." Serena smiled, her heart swelling with pride. "If I can do it, so can you." Late one night, Serena sat at her sewing machine, putting the finishing touches on a new design. Liam slept peacefully in the next room, and Caleb worked on blueprints at the kitchen table. The sound of their shared life filled the air, a symphony of resilience and hope. As Serena held up the completed piece, a dress inspired by her journey, she felt a profound sense of accomplishment. She had faced betrayal, heartbreak, and fear, yet she had risen above it all. and she was just getting started. In the heart of Sweet Auburn, where historic cobblestone streets whispered stories of resilience, Serena Hayes found herself at a crossroads. Heritage by Serena was no longer just a dream sketched on scraps of paper. Orders began trickling in from local boutiques and online platforms after her designs were featured in Angela Pierce's article. The buzz around her small clothing line was growing, but the path ahead was steep. Mrs. Caroline Thompson, the formidable owner of the textile factory where Serena worked, noticed her potential early on. One afternoon, as the factory floor hummed with activity, Mrs. Thompson called Serena into her office. The older woman leaned against her desk, holding one of Serena's handmade dresses in her hands. "This," Mrs. Thompson said, pointing to the intricate stitching, "is not the work of a simple factory worker. You've got talent, Serena. Raw, untapped talent." Serena's cheeks flushed with pride. "Thank you, Mrs. Thompson. I never thought I'd be able to do this." Mrs. Thompson smiled, her sharp eyes softening. "You've got a spark, and I'm going to help you fan it into a flame. Let's carve out a small space in the back of the factory for you to work on your designs. Consider it an investment in your future." Serena's heart swelled. It was a modest gesture, but it felt monumental, a sign that she was finally moving forward. Meanwhile, Caleb Wright remained an unwavering source of support. He continued to encourage Serena, both in her creative pursuits and her efforts to navigate the complexities of single motherhood. On weekends, Caleb would bring over blueprints for the community center he was designing and sit with Serena as they worked side by side at her kitchen table. One evening, Caleb handed Serena a leather-bound sketchbook. "Every designer needs a place to put their ideas," he said, his voice warm. "Consider this a step toward your future." Serena opened the sketchbook, running her fingers over the smooth pages. "Thank you," she whispered. "I don't know what I'd do without you." "You'd figure it out," Caleb replied with a grin. "But I'm happy to be here." Not everyone at the factory shared Mrs. Thompson's enthusiasm for Serena's rising success. Whispers followed her as she walked the aisles, and the camaraderie she once felt with her coworkers had turned into veiled hostility. "Think she's better than us now," one worker muttered as Serena passed by. Serena bit her lip, refusing to let their words derail her focus. But the strain was palpable, especially as she juggled her responsibilities as a mother, designer, and factory worker. Late nights at the sewing machine blurred into early mornings, getting Liam ready for school. Exhaustion became a constant companion, but she pushed through, fueled by a determination to create a better future for her son. One evening, Caleb surprised Serena with an invitation to a networking event hosted by a local investors group. It was an opportunity to pitch her clothing line to potential backers, a chance to take Heritage by Serena to the next level. Serena hesitated at first, unsure if she was ready to put herself out there. "What if they think my designs aren't good enough?" she asked, her voice tinged with doubt. Caleb placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Serena, you've already proven you're good enough. This is just the next step. Believe in yourself." With Caleb's encouragement, Serena spent the next week preparing a small presentation. She poured her heart into it, showcasing her designs as not just clothing, but a testament to resilience and creativity. On the night of the event, Serena wore one of her own creations, a simple yet elegant dress that radiated confidence. The room buzzed with energy as local entrepreneurs mingled, exchanging ideas and business cards. When it was Serena's turn to present, she took a deep breath and stepped onto the small stage. "Good evening," she began, her voice steady despite the butterflies in her stomach. "My name is Serena Hayes, and I'm the founder of Heritage by Serena, a clothing line inspired by the strength of women and the power of storytelling. She held up one of her designs, a baby's onesie adorned with intricate embroidery. Every piece I create carries a story. This one is for my son, Liam. It represents the hope and resilience I've found as a single mother, rebuilding her life. The audience listened intently, their faces a mix of curiosity and admiration. When Serena finished, the room erupted in applause. Several investors approached her afterward, expressing interest in her work. Among the investors was a sharp-eyed woman named Grace Mitchell, the founder of a sustainable fashion company. Grace saw potential in Serena's designs and offered to mentor her, providing guidance on everything from sourcing ethical materials to scaling production. "You've got something special," Grace told Serena. "With the right support, I think you could make a real impact." Serena was overwhelmed with gratitude. Grace's mentorship marked another milestone in her journey, a sign that her dreams were no longer just her own. They were becoming a reality. While Serena's life in Sweet Auburn was on an upward trajectory, Dominic Hayes was plotting his next move. Despite his tarnished reputation, he remained determined to regain control over Serena and Liam. His private investigators continued to monitor her, and his legal team drafted documents demanding joint custody of Liam. One evening, Serena received a letter from Dominic's lawyers. The words on the page felt like a slap in the face. "He's trying to control me again," Serena said, her voice shaking as she showed the letter to Caleb. "We won't let him," Caleb said firmly. "You have the law on your side, Serena. And you've got me." Serena nodded, drawing strength from Caleb's unwavering support. She knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but she was no longer the woman Dominic had discarded. She was stronger now, and she wasn't afraid to fight. As the chapter closed, Serena stood in her new workspace at the factory, surrounded by bolts of fabric and half-finished designs. Liam played nearby, his laughter filling the room with warmth. For the first time in years, Serena felt a sense of peace. She picked up her sketchbook and began drawing, her mind racing with ideas. Each line on the page represented a step forward, a piece of the future she was building for herself and her son. Serena Hayes was no longer just surviving, she was thriving. Life in Sweet Auburn had begun to stabilize for Serena Hayes. Heritage by Serena was blossoming into a brand that resonated deeply with its growing audience, thanks to the emotional narratives woven into her designs. Orders were increasing, and with Caleb's unwavering support, Serena felt the spark of hope burning brighter. But the shadows of her past loomed closer than she realized. It started subtly. A black SUV idled too long outside the factory one evening. A man in a suit lingered near her house on multiple occasions, pretending to read a newspaper. The small disturbances left Serena feeling exposed, but she brushed them off. After all, who would want to interfere with her life now? Across the country in Silicon Valley, Dominic Hayes' world continued to unravel. Forced out as CEO of Hayes Innovations following his affair and public scandals, Dominic was now a man with little left to lose. The lavish penthouse he once shared with Serena felt hollow, and his failed attempts to rebuild his image had drained him financially and emotionally. He became obsessed with tracking Serena's progress. Each article praising her brand or showcasing her designs was a dagger to his ego. Serena's success, far removed from his influence, felt like a rebuke of everything he had once stood for. "She's using my son as part of her little success story," Dominic fumed during a call with his lawyer. "I want her stopped." His lawyer, however, was more pragmatic. "Mr. Hayes, your public image is already precarious. Pursuing a custody battle now could backfire." Dominic ignored the advice, hiring private investigators to dig into Serena's life. He wanted leverage, any detail he could exploit to regain control over her and Liam. Unaware of Dominic's scheming, Serena continued to focus on her business. Grace Mitchell, her mentor, had introduced her to sustainable material suppliers, and Heritage by Serena was beginning to attract attention beyond Atlanta. Fashion bloggers were calling her designs raw and authentic, and a major online retailer expressed interest in carrying her collection. But Serena's growing success wasn't enough to shield her from the creeping unease that had begun to settle in her daily life. One evening, as she worked late in her factory workspace, a loud knock startled her. She froze, her heart pounding. "Serena, it's me," Caleb's voice called out. Relief washed over her as she opened the door. "You scared me," she admitted. Caleb frowned. "You're jumpy tonight. Everything okay?" Serena hesitated before nodding. "It's nothing. Just a weird feeling I've been having lately. Like someone's watching me." Caleb's expression darkened. "If you feel unsafe, you need to tell me. You don't have to handle this alone." The next morning, Serena found an envelope slipped under her front door. Inside was a single photograph of Liam, taken at his school playground. Her blood ran cold as she stared at the image, her hands trembling. The message was clear. Someone was watching them. Panicked, she called Caleb, who arrived within minutes. As he examined the photo, his jaw tightened. "This isn't random, Serena. Someone's targeting you." Serena fought back tears. "What do they want? Why are they doing this?" Caleb didn't answer immediately. Instead, he called Detective Laura Simmons, an old friend from the police department. Within an hour, Simmons arrived to assess the situation. "This kind of surveillance is deliberate," Simmons explained. "Do you have any idea who might be behind this?" Serena hesitated before saying, "Dominic, my ex-husband. He's the only person who would go to these lengths to intimidate me." Dominic's private investigators reported back with details of Serena's flourishing brand, her new home in Sweet Auburn, and the role Caleb was playing in her life. Consumed by jealousy and anger, Dominic decided it was time to act. He sent his legal team to Atlanta with a demand for joint custody of Liam. The documents accused Serena of using Liam as a prop for her business and claimed that Dominic, despite his tarnished reputation, could provide a better environment for his son. When the papers were served, Serena felt as though the ground beneath her had given way. She clutched the documents in disbelief, her mind racing. "How dare he?" she whispered, her voice shaking with rage. "After everything he's done, how dare he try to take Liam from me?" Caleb was by her side immediately. "We'll fight this, Serena," he assured her. "He doesn't have a leg to stand on." But Serena's confidence wavered. Memories of Dominic's manipulative tactics flooded her mind. She knew how ruthless he could be when his pride was at stake. "What if he wins?" she asked quietly. "What if I lose Liam?" Caleb took her hands in his. "You won't, because you're not alone this time. We'll face this together." Rather than letting fear paralyze her, Serena channeled her emotions into her work. She began designing a new collection, one that told the story of resilience in the face of adversity. Each piece reflected a part of her journey: motherhood, survival, and triumph over the odds. Her designs became more personal than ever, and the response from her growing customer base was overwhelming. Women from all walks of life wrote to Serena, sharing how her work inspired them. These letters became a source of strength, reminding her why she couldn't let Dominic's interference derail her progress. With Caleb and Grace's guidance, Serena decided to go public with her story. In an interview with a prominent fashion magazine, She spoke candidly about her struggles as a single mother and the challenges she faced in rebuilding her life. "I've had to fight for everything I have," Serena said during the interview. "And I'll keep fighting. For my son, for my dreams, and for every woman who's ever been told she's not enough." The article garnered widespread attention, casting Serena as a symbol of resilience and empowerment. It also painted Dominic in an unflattering light, exposing his attempts to undermine her success. The air in Sweet Auburn grew heavier as Serena Hayes prepared for the legal storm brewing on her horizon. The custody battle Dominic Hayes initiated wasn't just a fight for her son. It was a test of her resolve, her strength, and the life she had rebuilt from the ashes. The first court summons arrived early one morning. Clutching the official-looking envelope, Serena's hands trembled. She had faced Dominic's cruelty before, but this was different. This was about Liam. "He's my entire world," she whispered to herself as tears threatened to fall. Caleb Wright found her sitting on her porch, staring at the papers. "We'll get through this," Caleb said firmly, sitting beside her. His steady presence was an anchor in the storm. Miles away in San Francisco, Dominic strategized with his high-powered legal team. For him, this wasn't just about Liam. It was about regaining control over a narrative he felt was slipping away. "She's using my son to build her little empire," Dominic sneered during a meeting. "The public sees her as some kind of hero. We need to change that." His lawyer, Veronica Chase, a sharp, unrelenting strategist, responded coolly. "Public perception won't matter if we can prove she's unstable or unfit." Dominic's team began gathering evidence, twisting Serena's every move to fit their narrative. They highlighted her financial struggles before her success and painted her as an opportunist, exploiting her son's story. Back in Atlanta, Serena leaned on her growing support system. Caleb stood by her side every step of the way, and Grace Mitchell, her mentor, connected her with a compassionate family lawyer, David Harper. David reviewed the case files and assured Serena, "Dominic's claims are weak, but we need to be meticulous. Custody battles are as much about perception as they are about evidence." Despite the reassurance, Serena couldn't shake the fear of losing Liam. But every time doubt crept in, she found strength in her son's laughter and Caleb's unwavering belief in her. The first court hearing was set for a Thursday morning. Dressed in a simple yet elegant outfit she designed herself, Serena walked into the courthouse, with her head held high. Caleb walked beside her, his hand lightly brushing hers in silent support. Across the room, Dominic sat confidently, flanked by his legal team. His smirk when their eyes met sent a chill down Serena's spine. The hearing was procedural, a scheduling of future dates and requests for evidence. But Dominic's lawyers wasted no time painting Serena as a struggling single mother, incapable of providing stability. "Miss Hayes has only recently achieved financial security," Veronica argued, "and her growing business, while admirable, demands time and energy that may detract from her ability to care for a young child." David responded calmly, pointing out Dominic's own tumultuous personal life and the fact that he had no meaningful relationship with Liam. The judge, a stern but fair woman named Judge Ellen Monroe, listened intently. "This case will require detailed evidence from both sides. I expect full transparency." Outside the courtroom, Dominic approached Serena, his expression smug. "You can't win this, Serena. I've got the resources, the connections, and I have Liam." Serena interrupted, her voice steady. "This isn't about you, Dominic. It's about him. And I won't let you drag him into your mess." Dominic's smirk faltered for a moment before he turned and walked away. That night, Serena poured her emotions into her designs. Each stitch, each fabric choice, became a reflection of her battle. Her latest collection, titled Unbreakable, began to take shape. It was bold, raw, and deeply personal, garments that told a story of resilience, motherhood, and the fight for justice. The collection caught the attention of fashion critics, who praised Serena's ability to translate her personal struggles into wearable art. Orders surged, and offers for partnerships began pouring in. But Serena wasn't just fighting for her business, she was fighting for her son. As the custody battle intensified, Caleb's role in Serena's life deepened. He became Liam's unofficial father figure, teaching him how to ride a bike and helping him with school projects. Liam's laughter when he was with Caleb filled Serena with both joy and gratitude. One evening, as they sat together on the porch, Caleb turned to Serena. "You're stronger than you know," he said softly. "Dominic thinks he can break you, but he doesn't understand the kind of fire you have." Serena looked at him, her heart full. "I don't know what I'd do without you." "You won't have to find out," Caleb replied, his voice steady. With David's guidance, Serena began to turn the tables on Dominic. They dug into his past, uncovering evidence of his reckless spending, his affair, and his neglect of Liam during their marriage. In court, David presented photos, financial records, and witness testimonies that painted a damning picture of Dominic's character. Veronica's attempts to discredit Serena fell flat in the face of her undeniable transformation and success. The turning point came when Judge Monroe asked Dominic directly, "Mr. Hayes, why are you only now seeking custody of your son?" Dominic's stammered response, an attempt to justify his absence, was met with silence in the courtroom. Amid the legal battle, Serena decided to use her platform to take control of the narrative. In a heartfelt interview with a major fashion magazine, she opened up about her journey. "I've faced challenges that could have broken me," she said, "but I made a promise to my son that I would give him a life full of love and stability. Everything I do is for him." The article went viral, earning Serena even more public support. Women across the country rallied around her, sharing their own stories of resilience and cheering her on. The final court hearing was a culmination of months of preparation, fear, and hope. Judge Monroe, after reviewing all evidence, ruled in Serena's favor. Dominic's request for joint custody was denied, and he was granted only supervised visitation. Serena held Liam close as relief washed over her. "We did it, sweetheart," she whispered. Caleb stood nearby, his eyes filled with pride. "You never gave up," he said. "That's what makes you unstoppable." As the chapter closed, Serena stood in her workshop, surrounded by her unbreakable collection. Liam played nearby, his laughter filling the room. Caleb joined them, his presence a constant reminder that Serena's life was no longer about surviving. It was about thriving. Together, they were building a future no one could take away. Sweet Auburn was alive, with the hum of Serena Hayes' determination. Her latest collection, Unbreakable, had become a beacon of hope, a reflection of her tenacity as a mother and a designer. Yet, despite the local acclaim, Serena knew her aspirations stretched beyond Atlanta. "You've got to take this to the big stage, Serena," Caleb urged one evening. "Your story, your designs, people need to see them." "But New York?" Serena hesitated, watching Liam play nearby. The thought of leaving her son, even temporarily, made her uneasy. Caleb knelt beside her. "You've worked too hard to stop now. Liam will be fine. I'll make sure of it." With his encouragement, Serena decided to seize the opportunity Caleb had arranged. A meeting with boutique owner and fashion influencer Marjorie Westwood in New York City. The journey to New York felt surreal. Serena carried her designs with care, each piece representing a part of her heart. Evelyn, her mother, promised to watch Liam, allowing Caleb to accompany Serena for support. As their train sped toward the city, Serena gazed out the window, her mind racing with anticipation and fear. Caleb reached over, giving her hand a reassuring squeeze. "New York isn't just another city," he said. "It's a stage, and you're ready for it." Marjorie Westwood's boutique was a haven of elegance nestled in the heart of Manhattan. The boutique owner herself was a commanding presence, tall, sharp-eyed, and impeccably dressed. She greeted Serena with a mix of curiosity and skepticism. "I've heard a lot about you, Ms. Hayes," Marjorie said, motioning for Serena to display her work. Serena carefully unveiled her collection, piece by piece, explaining the inspiration behind each design. Her voice trembled at first, but grew stronger as she shared her journey. "This collection is called Unbreakable," Serena concluded. "It's about resilience, about finding strength in the face of adversity." Marjorie studied the designs silently, her expression unreadable. After what felt like an eternity, she looked up. "These are extraordinary," she said, her tone softer. "But fashion isn't just about the clothes. It's about the story behind them. Your story is what will make these pieces unforgettable." Marjorie agreed to feature Serena's collection in her boutique, promising to introduce her to influential figures in the industry. The news spread quickly, with local fashion blogs picking up Serena's story. Back in Atlanta, Serena's small team worked tirelessly to fulfill the sudden influx of orders. Mrs. Thompson, her factory mentor, became a pivotal figure, ensuring the production maintained Serena's high standards. "We're not just making clothes," Mrs. Thompson reminded the team. "We're building a movement." Meanwhile, Dominic Hayes watched Serena's rise with growing bitterness. His once untouchable empire, Hayes Innovations, was crumbling under the weight of public scrutiny and investor distrust. Seeing Serena thrive only added to his frustration. "She's using my son as a prop for sympathy," Dominic muttered during a meeting with his PR team. "We need to shift the narrative." But no matter what angle they tried, Dominic's attempts to undermine Serena fell flat. Her authenticity resonated with people in a way his wealth and influence never could. Marjorie invited Serena to participate in a showcase event at her boutique, attended by prominent designers, critics, and buyers. It was Serena's first major step into the fashion world, and the stakes couldn't have been higher. The night of the showcase, Serena stood backstage, nerves threatening to overwhelm her. Caleb appeared at her side, his calm presence steadying her. "You've already won, Serena," he said. "No matter what happens tonight, you've shown the world who you are." When the first model stepped onto the runway, draped in Serena's designs, the room fell silent. The bold patterns, intricate stitching, and emotional depth of her work captivated the audience. By the end of the show, the applause was thunderous. After the event, Serena found herself surrounded by reporters and industry professionals, eager to learn more about her journey. Marjorie introduced her to key figures, including renowned designer Victor Armand, who praised her work. "You've captured something rare," Victor said. "Fashion that speaks to the soul." Serena's heart swelled with pride. For the first time, she felt like she truly belonged in this world. Returning to Atlanta, Serena was met with a hero's welcome. Liam ran to her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "Did you win, Mommy?" he asked, his wide eyes full of hope. Serena knelt down, holding him close. "Yes, sweetheart, we won." But the demands of her growing success weighed heavily on her. Late nights, early mornings, and constant travel began to take a toll. Serena worried about the impact on Liam, but Caleb and Evelyn assured her she was setting an example of strength and perseverance. Liam doesn't need you to be perfect, Caleb said one evening. He just needs you to be you. As Serena's star rose, so did the dangers surrounding her. Dominic's private investigators continued to watch her every move, waiting for any opportunity to discredit her. Serena noticed unfamiliar cars parked near her home and received anonymous threats, warning her to back down. Determined not to let fear control her, Serena took precautions, hiring a security consultant and moving production to a secure location. Caleb and Evelyn became her fiercest protectors, ensuring Liam remained safe and unaware of the growing threats. Despite the challenges, Serena began to see the potential for her brand to do more than create beautiful clothes. She envisioned Heritage by Serena as a platform for empowering others, especially women like herself, who had faced hardship and risen above it. Caleb helped her draft plans for a mentorship program and community initiatives, further rooting her success in the values that had carried her through her darkest times. Standing in her workshop late one night, Serena gazed at a vision board filled with sketches, photos, and clippings from her New York triumph. Liam's laughter echoed from the next room, where Caleb was reading him a bedtime story. Serena smiled, her heart full. She wasn't just building a business, she was building a legacy. The warmth of the Atlanta morning filled Serena's kitchen as Liam, now a curious and observant 7-year-old, set down his bowl of cereal. His wide eyes, a mix of Serena's resilience and Dominic's sharpness, locked onto her. "Mom," he began cautiously, "why don't I have a dad like other kids?" Serena froze, her heart sinking. She had known this moment would come, but no amount of preparation could make it easier. Taking a deep breath, she pulled out a small photo album she had hidden for years. "Let's talk, Liam," she said, guiding him to the couch. Flipping through the pages, Serena showed Liam pictures of Dominic, taken during the early, happier days of their marriage. "This is your father," she said softly. "His name is Dominic Hayes." Liam studied the photos, his young mind working to piece together the fragmented story. "Why isn't he here?" he asked. Serena hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "Sometimes people make choices that hurt others," she said. "But you don't need him to know your worth, Liam. You're amazing just the way you are." Unbeknownst to Serena, Dominic had been following her rising success from afar. Her growing prominence in the fashion world had become impossible to ignore, even as his own empire continued to crumble. The sight of his son in media coverage of Serena's events reignited something within him. Whether it was guilt, regret, or his own selfish need to reclaim control, even Dominic wasn't sure. Dominic began attending Serena's public showcases incognito, lurking in the back of rooms filled with applause and admiration for her work. The sight of Liam, his son, added a layer of complexity to his intentions. "She's teaching him to hate me," Dominic muttered to his assistant, a loyal but increasingly wary man named Craig. "I need to set the record straight." Meanwhile, Liam's newfound knowledge about his father led to more questions. One sunny afternoon, as Caleb helped him build a model airplane, Liam blurted out, "Do you know my dad?" Caught off guard, Caleb set down the glue and met Liam's gaze. "I know of him," Caleb replied carefully, "but I also know that you've got a family right here that loves you more than anything." "But why doesn't he love me?" Liam pressed, his voice tinged with sadness. Caleb pulled Liam into a gentle hug. "Sometimes people don't know how to show love the right way. But that doesn't mean you're not worth loving, Liam. You're one of the bravest, smartest kids I've ever met." That evening, Serena found Liam asleep on the couch, clutching the photo album. She gently tucked him in and returned to the living room, where Caleb waited. He's asking so many questions, Serena said, her voice trembling. I don't know how to protect him from this. Caleb took her hand. You've already done so much, Serena. But maybe it's time for Liam to understand more about where he comes from. That doesn't mean Dominic deserves a second chance, but Liam deserves the truth. The opportunity for answers came sooner than Serena expected. At her next fashion showcase in Atlanta, Dominic appeared unannounced, standing at the edge of the rooms as Serena's models took to the runway. His presence sent a ripple of tension through the event. When the show ended, Serena found herself face to face with Dominic backstage. His once pristine appearance was tarnished. The weight of his failures showed in the lines on his face and the slump of his shoulders. What are you doing here, Dominic? Serena demanded, keeping her voice low to avoid attracting attention. I came to see my son, Dominic said, his tone pleading. I've made mistakes, Serena, but I want to make things right. Serena's eyes blazed with anger. You had your chance, Dominic. Liam doesn't need you. We don't need you. Dominic stepped closer, his expression desperate. Please, Serena, just let me talk to him. Despite her instincts, Serena decided to leave the choice up to Liam. Your father wants to meet you, she told him later that evening. But only if you're ready. Liam thought for a long moment before nodding. I want to see him. The meeting took place at a nearby park, with Serena and Caleb watching from a safe distance. Dominic approached Liam cautiously, unsure of how to begin. Hi, Liam, he said, his voice wavering. I'm your dad. Liam studied him, his small frame standing tall. Why did you leave us? He asked, his voice steady despite the emotions bubbling beneath. Dominic knelt down, meeting Liam's eyes. I made a terrible mistake, he admitted. I hurt your mom, and I hurt you. But I want to be better. I want to be part of your life, if you'll let me. The encounter left Serena feeling conflicted. While Liam seemed cautiously optimistic, Serena couldn't shake her mistrust of Dominic's motives. Caleb, ever the voice of reason, reminded her to focus on what mattered most. Liam's happiness comes first, he said. If Dominic can be a positive influence, maybe it's worth giving him a chance. But that doesn't mean you have to forget what he's done. As Dominic tried to rebuild his relationship with Liam, he faced resistance from both Serena and Caleb. Each interaction was a test of his sincerity, and any misstep risked severing the fragile connection he was trying to form. Meanwhile, Serena's brand continued to flourish. Her mentorship program in Sweet Auburn attracted aspiring designers from across the region, and her latest collection was set to debut at a prestigious event in Los Angeles. But the shadow of Dominic's presence loomed large, threatening to unravel the stability Serena had fought so hard to create. One night, as Serena tucked Liam into bed, he turned to her with a question that caught her off guard. Do you think Daddy loves me? Serena paused, her hand resting on his cheek. I think he's trying, sweetheart. But what matters most is that you know how much I love you. I know, Liam said with a sleepy smile. You're the best, Mom. Serena kissed his forehead, silently vowing to protect him from anything or anyone that might bring him harm. As the moonlight bathed their small home in Sweet Auburn, Serena sat by the window, sketching designs for her next collection. Each stroke of her pencil reflected her determination to build a future where Liam could thrive without fear or doubt. In the distance, Caleb's laughter mingled with Liam's, a reminder that love and resilience were the true foundations of their family. Dominic Hayes sat alone in the shadowed corner of a modest cafe in Atlanta, the hum of quiet conversations around him fading into the background. For years, he had dominated boardrooms with a sharp tongue and a commanding presence, But now he was just a man, grappling with the consequences of his past. His reflection in the cafe window mirrored a stranger, eyes weary, shoulders slumped, and regret etched deeply into his features. The memories of his meeting with Liam lingered. The boy's steady gaze and pointed questions had pierced through Dominic's carefully constructed armor. "Why did you leave us?" Liam's voice echoed in his mind, unraveling the threads of his confidence. "I have to make this right," Dominic muttered to himself, but he wasn't sure how. Every move he made felt like a step further away from the redemption he sought. At Sweet Auburn Community Center, Caleb Wright was leading a group of children through a hands-on lesson on structural engineering. His deep, reassuring voice carried over the hum of chatter and laughter. Liam sat among the group, his small hands diligently working on a bridge model made of popsicle sticks and glue. Serena watched from a distance, her heart swelling with pride, as Caleb knelt beside Liam, offering guidance. Their bond had grown stronger with each passing day, and Serena couldn't imagine a better role model for her son. But just as she turned to leave, a familiar figure caught her eye. Dominic, standing hesitantly near the entrance, his face a mixture of hope and trepidation. "What are you doing here?" Serena demanded, her tone sharp but controlled. "I just want to see him," Dominic said, his voice quiet but firm. "I'm not here to cause trouble." Serena hesitated, glancing back at Liam. "Fine," she relented, "but only for a moment." As Dominic approached the activity area, Liam's eyes widened in surprise. "Dad?" he said, dropping his bridge model. "Hey, buddy," Dominic said, kneeling to meet Liam's gaze. "I just wanted to check in and see how you're doing." Liam glanced at Caleb, who nodded in encouragement. "I'm good," Liam replied cautiously. "We're building bridges." Dominic smiled faintly, his fingers twitching, as if he wanted to reach out. "You've always been smart," he said. "I'm proud of you." The words, simple yet powerful, caught Liam off guard. He nodded, unsure of how to respond. The moment was brief, but it planted a seed, a fragile thread of connection that Dominic hoped to nurture. Later that evening, Serena and Caleb sat across from Dominic in her living room, the tension palpable. Caleb's protective instincts were on high alert, his arm draped over Serena's shoulder as a silent declaration of solidarity. "I appreciate you letting me see him," Dominic began, his tone measured. "I know I've made mistakes, but I want to be part of Liam's life." Serena folded her arms, her gaze unwavering. "This isn't about what you want, Dominic. It's about what Liam needs, and right now, he needs stability, not empty promises." Dominic leaned forward, desperation creeping into his voice. "I'm not asking for a second chance with you, Serena. Just with him. Let me prove that I've changed." Caleb's voice cut through the tension like a blade. "Words won't be enough. You'll need to show Liam and us that you're serious." Determined to back his words with actions, Dominic began volunteering at a local homeless shelter, an effort to rebuild his tarnished reputation and find a sense of purpose. The work was humbling and far removed from the world of luxury he once inhabited. Cleaning floors and serving meals gave him a newfound appreciation for the resilience of those who had faced hardships far greater than his own. At the shelter, Dominic befriended Clara Bennett, a sharp-witted social worker who saw through his intentions. "If you're here to fix your image, you might as well leave," she said bluntly. "I'm here to fix myself," Dominic replied, surprising even himself with the honesty of his words. Meanwhile, Serena's brand, Heritage by Serena, was preparing for its biggest milestone yet, a debut at Los Angeles Fashion Week. The collection, inspired by her journey of resilience and motherhood, was her most personal work to date. Each piece told a story of love, loss, and the power to overcome. During a fitting session, Liam approached Serena with a sketch of his own. "Can this be part of your show?" he asked, holding up a drawing of a simple yet striking design. Serena's eyes welled with tears as she studied the drawing. "It's perfect," she said, pulling him into a hug. "You're so talented, Liam." As the day of the fashion show approached, Dominic made an unexpected move. He sent Serena a handwritten letter, apologizing for the pain he had caused and offering to support her event in any way he could. The gesture left Serena conflicted. While she remained wary of Dominic's intentions, she couldn't deny the sincerity in his words. "Maybe he really is trying," Caleb said, offering a perspective Serena hadn't considered. The atmosphere at Los Angeles Fashion Week was electric. Photographers, journalists, and fashion enthusiasts filled the venue, eager to witness Serena's much-anticipated debut. Backstage, Serena was a whirlwind of activity, ensuring every detail was perfect. As the lights dimmed and the first model stepped onto the runway, the crowd erupted in applause. Each design was a testament to Serena's journey, a celebration of resilience, empowerment, and heritage. In the audience, Dominic watched with a mix of awe and regret. Seeing Serena's success reminded him of what he had lost, but it also inspired him to continue his path of redemption. After the show, Dominic approached Serena backstage, his expression one of vulnerability. "You were incredible," he said. "Liam must be so proud." Serena turned to face him, her gaze steady. "This isn't about you, Dominic. It's about Liam and the life I've built for him." "I know," Dominic admitted. "I just want to be part of it, on your terms." Serena hesitated, then nodded. "We'll see." Later that night, Liam climbed into Serena's lap, holding a small trophy he had received from his school. "Mom," he said, his voice soft, "do you think Daddy is trying to be better?" Serena stroked his hair, her heart aching with the weight of the question. "I think he's trying," she said. "But remember, Liam, you're loved no matter what." As the Hayes family navigated the delicate balance of reconciliation and boundaries, one thing became clear. Their story was far from over. But with each step forward, they proved that redemption, while not guaranteed, was always worth pursuing. The chapter ends with a quiet moment. Serena, Caleb, and Liam, sitting together under the stars, their laughter mingling with the sound of the Atlanta night. The future remained uncertain, but for now, they had hope. The morning sunlight filtered through the tall windows of the Sweet Auburn Community Center, casting a warm glow on the buzzing activity within. Serena stood at the center of it all, her clipboard in hand, directing volunteers and mentoring young designers. Her dream for Heritage by Serena had evolved from a small clothing line into a movement, a platform for empowerment and creativity. The idea of mentoring young designers had come from Caleb, who had seen the potential for Serena's story to inspire others. "Your strength isn't just in your designs, Serena," he had said. "It's in your ability to lift others." Serena's voice carried across the room as she encouraged a teenager struggling with a pattern. "Don't overthink it," she said with a smile. "Sometimes the best designs come from following your instincts." Meanwhile, Caleb had become a central figure in Sweet Auburn, using his skills as an architect to renovate the community center and create safe spaces for youth to learn and grow. He often joked that he was building literal and metaphorical bridges, a nod to both his profession and the connections he fostered among the community. One evening, as the two sat on the porch of Serena's home, Caleb revealed a set of blueprints. "This is my latest project," he said, spreading the papers on the table. a new space for the youth program, a place where they can create, learn, and dream. Serena studied the plans, her eyes brimming with admiration. "You're incredible," she said softly. "So are you," Caleb replied, taking her hand, "and together, we're unstoppable." Dominic Hayes, though still navigating his own path to redemption, began volunteering more regularly at the homeless shelter. His work there brought him face to face with individuals whose stories mirrored Serena's struggles. These encounters humbled him, giving him a new perspective on the world he had once dominated with arrogance and entitlement. Clara Bennett, the social worker at the shelter, noticed the change in Dominic. "You're different now," she remarked one afternoon as they distributed meals. "What changed?" "I lost everything," Dominic admitted. "And for the first time, I realized that power and money mean nothing without purpose." Clara's sharp gaze softened. "Then maybe you're starting to find yours." Caleb had been planning the moment for weeks. He wanted it to be perfect, a reflection of the love and partnership he shared with Serena. On a warm Saturday evening, surrounded by friends and community members, Caleb stood before Serena at the community center's newly renovated courtyard. "Serena," he began, his voice steady despite the emotions swirling within him, "you are the strongest, most inspiring woman I have ever known. You've taught me the meaning of resilience and the power of love. I want to build a life with you, a life where we continue to grow, support, and uplift each other." Serena's eyes filled with tears as Caleb knelt, holding out a simple yet elegant ring. "Will you marry me?" The crowd held its breath as Serena nodded, her voice breaking with emotion. "Yes," she said, her words met with cheers and applause. Liam ran forward, wrapping his arms around both of them. "Does this mean I get to call him Dad now?" he asked, his innocence melting every heart in the crowd. Caleb laughed, lifting Liam into his arms. "It means we're officially a family," he said. Watching the proposal from a distance, Dominic felt a pang of regret and longing. He knew he had no place in the moment, but couldn't help feeling a deep respect for Caleb. The man had stepped up in ways Dominic hadn't, becoming the father figure Liam needed. As the celebrations continued, Dominic quietly left, vowing to support Serena and Liam in the only way he knew how, by continuing his own journey of self-improvement. The weeks following the proposal were a whirlwind of activity for Serena. Heritage by Serena had gained national attention after her success at Los Angeles Fashion Week, and opportunities poured in from all directions. Yet, Serena remained grounded, focusing on using her platform to make a difference. She launched a mentorship program for young designers, partnering with schools and community centers across Atlanta. The program provided resources, training, and scholarships to aspiring creatives, ensuring that her success would ripple through generations. One of her mentees, a shy but talented artist named Amara, approached Serena during a workshop. "Thank you for believing in us," Amara said, her voice barely above a whisper. "You've given me hope." Serena smiled, her heart swelling with pride. "You've always had the talent, Amara. I'm just here to help you shine." As part of his ongoing redemption, Dominic began working on a project close to his heart, creating a foundation dedicated to supporting single parents and their children. He named it the Second Chances Foundation, a nod to the opportunities he wished he had given Serena and Liam sooner. The foundation's launch event drew attention from media outlets, many of which were eager to document Dominic's transformation. When asked about his motivations, Dominic spoke candidly. "This isn't about erasing my past," he said. "It's about learning from it and doing better. If I can help even one family avoid the mistakes I made, then it's worth it." The chapter culminates in a grand celebration at the Sweet Auburn Community Center, marking the completion of Caleb's renovation project and the launch of Serena's mentorship program. The event brought together people from all walks of life, highlighting the power of unity and collaboration. As Serena stood before the crowd, Liam by her side, she addressed the audience with heartfelt sincerity. "This community has shown me the true meaning of resilience," she declared. "Together, we've turned challenges into opportunities and dreams into reality. I'm proud to call Sweet Auburn my home." The crowd erupted in applause, their cheers echoing through the night. Later that evening, as the celebrations wound down, Serena, Caleb, and Liam sat together under the twinkling lights of the courtyard. "We've come so far," Serena said, her voice filled with gratitude. "And we're just getting started," Caleb replied, wrapping his arm around her. Liam, clutching a sketch pad filled with new designs, looked up at them with a smile. "Can we build more bridges tomorrow?" Serena and Caleb exchanged a glance, their hearts full. "Yes, Liam," Serena said. "Tomorrow. And every day after that." The buzzing energy of Liam's fifth-grade classroom was electric as students shared presentations about their family history. Mrs. Walker, their encouraging and lively teacher, stood at the front, occasionally nodding or offering prompts. Liam sat at his desk, nervously clutching a folder filled with papers, photographs, and clippings Serena had helped him prepare. "Next up, Liam Hayes," Mrs. Walker announced with a warm smile. The class grew quiet as Liam walked to the front, setting up his presentation board. With a deep breath, he began. "This is my mom, Serena Hayes. She's a designer and, well, a hero to me." He shared photos of Serena's journey, from the first clothing pieces she stitched for him as a baby to the grand showcases of heritage by Serena. The class clapped enthusiastically, and Mrs. Walker beamed with pride. As Liam packed up his board, a classmate asked a question that stopped him cold. "What about your dad? Did he help with your project?" Liam froze. It wasn't the first time someone had asked, but this time, the curiosity sparked something deeper. He returned to his seat, his mind racing. That evening, Liam sat in the corner of Serena's design studio, flipping through an old photo album while she worked on a new collection. His fingers lingered over a picture of Serena, holding him as a baby. She looked exhausted but happy, her smile radiating warmth, despite the humble backdrop of their early days in Atlanta. "Mom?" Liam asked hesitantly. "Why don't I know anything about my dad?" Serena stiffened, the sound of the sewing machine falling silent. She turned to face him, her eyes searching his. "Liam, it's complicated." "I'm old enough to understand," he pressed, his voice firm but not accusatory. "I just want to know who he is." Serena knelt beside him, taking the album from his hands. She flipped to a page with a single photo. A younger Dominic Hayes, sharp-suited and confident. "This is your father," she said softly. "Dominic Hayes." Liam's eyes widened as he took in the image. "He's famous, isn't he?" "He was," Serena admitted. "But fame doesn't always mean goodness, Liam. Your father made choices that hurt us both." Liam's curiosity spiraled. Over the next few days, he quietly researched Dominic online, piecing together fragments of his story. He learned about Hayes' innovations, the scandal that led to Dominic's downfall, and the recent launch of the Second Chances Foundation. Serena noticed Liam's growing fixation and decided it was time for an honest conversation. One evening after dinner, she sat him down at the kitchen table. "Liam," she began, her voice gentle but firm, "I know you have questions about your father. What do you want to know?" Liam hesitated, then asked, "Why did he leave us?" Serena's heart ached as she searched for the right words. "Your father wasn't ready to be the kind of person we needed him to be," she explained. "But that doesn't mean he didn't care in his own way." "Do you think he's changed?" Liam asked, his eyes filled with hope and doubt. "I don't know," Serena admitted. "But what I do know is that you are strong and loved no matter what." Unbeknownst to Serena and Liam, Dominic had been following their lives from a distance. News of Serena's success had reached him through industry circles, and he couldn't help but feel a mix of pride and regret. When he stumbled upon an article mentioning Liam's school project, he was struck by an overwhelming urge to reach out. Dominic spent hours drafting a letter to Liam, carefully choosing his words. He wanted to explain himself, but feared rejection. The letter remained on his desk, unfinished, as he wrestled with his guilt and longing. Liam's curiosity finally drove him to take action. One Saturday, while Serena was busy with a community event, he slipped away and made his way to the address he'd found online for the Second Chances Foundation. The foundation's offices were modest, but welcoming, filled with posters about community outreach programs. Liam's heart raced as he approached the front desk. "I'm looking for Dominic Hayes," he said, his voice steady despite the nerves bubbling inside him. The receptionist hesitated before leading him to a small office. Inside, Dominic sat at a cluttered desk, reviewing paperwork. When he looked up and saw Liam, his breath caught. For a moment, neither spoke, the weight of the moment rendering them silent. "You're Liam," Dominic finally said, his voice thick with emotion. Liam nodded. "I wanted to meet you." The initial meeting was awkward, filled with long pauses and hesitant words. Dominic struggled to find the balance between honesty and restraint, while Liam grappled with his feelings of anger and curiosity. "Why did you leave us?" Liam asked bluntly, his gaze unwavering. Dominic sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I was selfish," he admitted. "I put my ambitions above everything else, and I hurt the people I cared about the most. It's something I'll regret for the rest of my life." Liam's eyes narrowed. "Do you regret leaving me, or just what it did to your career?" The question hit Dominic like a punch to the gut. "I regret losing the chance to be your father," he said quietly. "And I'll do whatever it takes to make it right, if you'll let me." When Serena discovered Liam's visit to Dominic, she was furious, but not at Liam. Her anger was directed at Dominic for intruding on their lives without warning. She confronted him at the foundation, her voice sharp and unwavering. "You don't get to just show up and play father when it suits you," she said, her words cutting like a blade. "Liam deserves stability, not your half-hearted attempts at redemption." Dominic didn't argue. "You're right," he said. "But I want to try, Serena. Not for me, for him." In the weeks that followed, Liam wrestled with his feelings. He began spending limited time with Dominic, supervised by Serena, who made it clear that her priority was Liam's well-being. During one visit, Liam asked Dominic a question that had been weighing on his heart. "Do you think we could ever be a real family?" Dominic's eyes filled with tears. "I don't know," he admitted, "but I'd like to try." The chapter ends with Liam sitting in his room, writing an essay for school about resilience. He reflects on the complexities of family, the strength of his mother, and the tentative connection he's forming with Dominic. "Sometimes family isn't about where you start," he writes. "It's about where you choose to go together." Serena, Caleb, and Liam settled into a routine that felt almost idyllic. Serena's fashion brand, Heritage by Serena, was thriving. Caleb's architectural firm had secured several community projects, and Liam seemed to grow more confident with each passing day. Even Dominic's supervised visits with Liam, while tense, had found a delicate rhythm. One warm evening, the family gathered for a community cookout in Sweet Auburn. Serena laughed with friends as Caleb grilled burgers and Liam played tag with other kids. For the first time in years, peace felt attainable. But peace can be fleeting. While walking to his car after one of his visits with Liam, Dominic was approached by a man in a dark suit. The man introduced himself as Malcolm Greer, a former business associate Dominic had severed ties with years ago. Malcolm's tone was smooth, but his words carried a sharp edge. "I hear you've been laying low, Dominic," Malcolm said, lighting a cigarette. "But a man like you doesn't just disappear." Dominic's jaw tightened. "I've moved on," Malcolm smirked. "We all have skeletons, Hayes. Some just refuse to stay buried. Maybe you should remind yourself who helped build your empire." Dominic walked away, without responding, but Malcolm's words lingered. His past was catching up to him, and he feared the consequences might spill over into the fragile life he was trying to rebuild. A few days later, Serena received an anonymous envelope at her studio. Inside was a grainy photograph of Liam, taken at school, with the words, "Don't test us," scrawled across the back. Serena's heart pounded as she called Caleb, who immediately rushed to her side. "This has to be Dominic's doing," Caleb fumed, his protective instincts flaring. "I don't know," Serena admitted, her voice trembling. "But I'm not taking any chances." They contacted the police, but with no concrete leads, the investigation stalled. Determined to protect Liam, Serena reluctantly called Dominic to confront him. Serena met Dominic at a quiet cafe, her tone icy but controlled. "Do you have any idea who might be threatening us?" she demanded, sliding the photo across the table. Dominic's face paled as he studied the image. "Malcolm," he muttered, his voice barely audible. "Who is Malcolm?" Serena pressed. "He's a dangerous man I worked with during the early days of Hayes Innovations," Dominic admitted. "When I cut ties with him, I thought I was free. But I underestimated how far he'd go to keep control." Serena's eyes narrowed. "And now, he's targeting Liam?" "I'll handle it," Dominic promised, his voice firm. "I won't let him hurt our son." That night, Dominic, Serena, and Caleb held a tense but necessary meeting. Dominic outlined Malcolm's potential motives and resources, and Caleb suggested additional security measures for their home and Liam's school. For the first time, the three adults found themselves united by a common goal: protecting Liam. "Whatever our differences," Caleb said, looking directly at Dominic, "we have to work together on this." Dominic nodded, agreed. One evening, as Serena and Caleb tucked Liam into bed, Dominic received a text from Malcolm. "Come alone, or they'll pay the price." The message included a location, an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city. Dominic hesitated before sharing the message with Serena and Caleb. "I can't risk dragging you into this," he said. "You can't go alone," Caleb countered. "That's exactly what he wants." After a heated debate, they devised a plan. Dominic would go to the meeting, while Caleb and Serena alerted the authorities, ensuring backup was nearby. The warehouse was dimly lit, its walls echoing with the sound of dripping water. Dominic entered cautiously, his footsteps crunching on the gravel floor. Malcolm emerged from the shadows, flanked by two burly men. "You've been busy," Malcolm sneered. "Trying to play hero doesn't suit you." "This ends tonight," Dominic said, his voice steady despite the fear coursing through him. "Leave my family out of this." Malcolm laughed coldly. "Your family? You didn't care about them when you were climbing your way to the top." As the tension escalated, Police sirens blared in the distance. Malcolm's men panicked, but Malcolm remained calm, pulling a gun from his coat. "Always a step ahead, aren't you, Dominic?" he said, raising the weapon. Before Malcolm could fire, Dominic lunged at him, knocking the gun to the ground. The two men grappled, their struggle illuminated by the flashing red and blue lights outside. Caleb, who had followed Dominic despite his protests, rushed in to help. In the chaos, Malcolm pulled a knife, slashing Dominic across the abdomen. Dominic collapsed as the police stormed the building, apprehending Malcolm and his men. Serena arrived moments later, her heart breaking, as she saw Dominic lying on the ground, clutching his wound. "Stay with me," she pleaded, tears streaming down her face. "I'm sorry," Dominic whispered, his voice weak. "For everything." Dominic was rushed to the hospital, his condition critical but stable. As he lay in recovery, Liam sat by his bedside, his small hand clutching Dominic's. "Why did you do it?" Liam asked, his voice trembling. "Because you're worth it," Dominic replied, his eyes filled with sincerity. "You and your mom, you're worth everything." In the days that followed, the family began to rebuild. Malcolm's arrest led to a cascade of revelations about his criminal network, and Serena worked tirelessly with the police to ensure justice was served. Dominic, while still recovering, found solace in the tentative bond he was forming with Liam. For the first time in years, he felt a glimmer of hope, a chance to redeem himself, not through grand gestures, but through genuine connection. The chapter ends with the family gathered around a bonfire in Sweet Auburn. Liam roasts marshmallows with Caleb, while Serena sits beside Dominic, their conversation subdued but meaningful. "Do you think we'll ever be normal?" Serena asks quietly. Dominic smiles faintly. "Normal is overrated, but I think we'll be okay." As the fire crackles and the stars shine above, the scene fades, leaving a sense of resilience and unity. The days following the dramatic showdown with Malcolm brought a mix of relief and uncertainty. The Sweet Auburn community had rallied around Serena, Caleb, and Liam, their collective warmth a salve for recent wounds. Dominic, still recovering in the hospital, was a man caught between his past and the chance to forge a better future. For Serena, the ordeal had sharpened her priorities. Caleb remained her rock, unwavering in his support, but she couldn't ignore the complicated emotions Dominic's sacrifice had stirred. For Liam, the experience had awakened a curiosity and a cautious openness toward the man he now knew as his biological father. Dominic spent long, quiet hours in his hospital bed, staring out the window at the city skyline. His body bore the scars of his confrontation with Malcolm, but his heart carried the deeper wounds of his life's choices. The door to his room opened one morning, and Liam stepped inside, clutching a small sketch pad. "I made this for you," Liam said, handing over a drawing of a superhero. The character's cape billowed in the wind, and a bold D was emblazoned on his chest. Dominic's voice cracked as he spoke. "Is that me?" Liam shrugged. "You saved me. That makes you a hero." For the first time in years, Dominic felt the weight of his guilt lift slightly. "Thank you, Liam," he said, his voice soft but filled with emotion. "That means more than you know." While Liam's bond with Dominic began to grow, Serena wrestled with her own feelings. Caleb, perceptive as ever, noticed her unease one evening as they sat on their porch. "You don't have to explain," Caleb said gently. "But if you're worried about how this affects us, don't be. I know where we stand." Serena smiled, her gratitude for Caleb's understanding unspoken but deeply felt. "It's not about us," she replied. "It's about Liam. I want to protect him, but I also want him to make his own choices." Caleb nodded. "Then we give him space to figure it out. And we'll be here, no matter what. Dominic's release from the hospital marked the beginning of a tentative reconciliation. Serena invited him to dinner, a small but significant gesture. The evening was awkward at first, with polite exchanges masking deeper emotions. But as Liam began to share stories from school, the tension eased. "I got an A on my science project," Liam announced proudly. "Caleb helped me build a model rocket." "That's great, buddy," Dominic said, a genuine smile breaking through. "Maybe next time I can help too." Serena observed the exchange with a mix of hope and caution. While Dominic had a long road to redemption, she couldn't deny the sincerity in his efforts. As the weeks passed, Liam's bond with Dominic deepened. One afternoon, while helping Serena in her studio, Liam hesitated before speaking. "Mom, do you think Dad's really changed?" he asked. Serena paused, setting aside the fabric she was working on. "I think he's trying, Liam. And that's a good start." Liam nodded thoughtfully. "I want to spend more time with him. Is that okay?" Serena knelt beside him, her hands resting on his shoulders. "It's more than okay. But remember, it's okay to have questions too. And no matter what, Caleb and I are always here for you." Dominic threw himself into his newfound role as a father, attending Liam's soccer games and helping with homework. He also began volunteering at the local homeless shelter, an effort to atone for his past. One evening, Serena visited the shelter unannounced. She found Dominic serving meals, his interactions with the guests marked by a humility she hadn't seen before. "I didn't expect to see you here," Dominic said, surprised but pleased. "I wanted to see for myself," Serena replied. "And I think Liam would be proud of what you're doing." Dominic's smile was tinged with sadness. "I'm just trying to be someone he can look up to." Meanwhile, Caleb had been quietly planning a surprise for Serena. One Saturday evening, he invited her to a community event at Sweet Auburn Park. As the sun set, casting a golden glow over the gathering, Caleb led Serena to a beautifully decorated pavilion. Friends and neighbors surrounded them, and Liam stood nearby, holding a small velvet box. Caleb dropped to one knee, his eyes shining with love and determination. "Serena, you've shown me what strength and grace look like," he began. "You've built a life filled with hope and beauty, and I want to be part of it forever. Will you marry me?" Tears filled Serena's eyes as she nodded. "Yes, Caleb. 1,000 times. Yes." The crowd erupted in cheers, and Liam hugged them both tightly. For the first time in years, Serena felt her heart truly at peace. While Caleb and Serena prepared for their wedding, Dominic continued to navigate his role in their lives. He approached Caleb one evening, his demeanor humble. "I just wanted to say thank you," Dominic said, "for being there for Serena and Liam when I couldn't." Caleb extended a hand. "It's not about who was there first, Dominic. It's about being there now." Dominic shook Caleb's hand, a silent understanding passing between them. The wedding was a celebration of love and community, held in the heart of Sweet Auburn. Serena walked down the aisle, her gown a stunning creation of her own design, symbolizing resilience and new beginnings. Caleb's vows brought tears to every eye, and Liam beamed as he stood beside them, serving as the ring-bearer. Even Dominic, seated quietly among the guests, couldn't help but feel a sense of pride for the family he had once nearly destroyed. The chapter closes with a toast at the reception. Serena stands, her glass raised high. "To love, to family, and to second chances," she declares. As the crowd cheers, the camera pans to Dominic, who watches from a distance. His expression is one of quiet acceptance, knowing that while he may never fully regain what he lost, he has found a way to contribute to their happiness. The following year marked a period of extraordinary growth and accomplishment for Serena. Heritage by Serena had blossomed into a respected name in the fashion industry, recognized not only for its aesthetic brilliance, but also for its unwavering commitment to sustainability and community empowerment. Serena's journey to Paris Fashion Week, the pinnacle of her career thus far, was not just a professional milestone. It was a deeply personal victory. This was a moment that symbolized the fulfillment of her promise to Liam and herself, to rise above the ashes and reclaim their future. Preparation for Paris Fashion Week began months earlier, with Serena and her small but dedicated team working tirelessly on her latest collection. Titled Roots and Wings, the collection drew inspiration from her journey as a single mother and her roots in Sweet Auburn. Each piece told a story, blending intricate patterns reminiscent of her childhood memories with modern avant-garde silhouettes that reflected her bold steps forward. The centerpiece of the collection was a gown titled Rebirth, a masterpiece of delicate embroidery and flowing silk, symbolizing resilience and transformation. Serena wasn't alone on this journey. Caleb, now her fiancé, had become her unwavering supporter, helping manage logistics and cheering her on through the late nights. Liam, curious and excited, often joined Serena in her studio, offering a 7-year-old's unfiltered opinions on her designs. Even Dominic contributed in small but meaningful ways. As part of his ongoing redemption, he had reached out to his contacts in the tech world to secure sponsorships for Heritage by Serena. His actions, though quiet, were genuine, and Serena began to see glimpses of the man she once believed in. The atmosphere in Paris was electric. As Serena stepped onto the cobblestone streets, she couldn't help but marvel at how far she had come. The city's grandeur was a stark contrast to the humble beginnings of her brand, yet she felt a deep sense of belonging. Her arrival at the venue was met with a flurry of cameras and reporters. The press buzzed about the single mother from Atlanta, whose designs were set to challenge the industry's biggest names. For Serena, the attention was overwhelming but affirming. As the lights dimmed in the grand hall, a hush fell over the audience. The soft strains of a violin began to play, and the first model stepped onto the runway, draped in one of Serena's creations. The audience was captivated. Each piece in the collection told a story of struggle, resilience, and triumph. The crowd murmured with admiration as the final model appeared, wearing the Rebirth gown. The intricate details shimmered under the spotlight, eliciting audible gasps. As the show ended, the audience erupted into applause. Tears welled in Serena's eyes as she stepped onto the runway to take her bow. For a brief moment, she locked eyes with Dominic, seated inconspicuously in the crowd. He smiled and nodded, a silent acknowledgement of her triumph. The after-party was a whirlwind of congratulations and networking. Fashion critics and industry leaders approached Serena, praising her vision and originality. A prominent designer offered a collaboration, while a major retailer expressed interest in carrying her line. In the midst of the celebration, Liam tugged at Serena's hand. "Mom, you did it," he exclaimed, his eyes shining with pride. Serena knelt down and hugged him tightly. "We did it, sweetheart. This is for both of us." Caleb joined them, wrapping his arms around Serena and Liam. "To many more victories," he said, raising a glass of sparkling cider. Dominic stayed on the fringes of the celebration, observing with a mixture of pride and regret. He approached Serena as the evening wound down, his voice hesitant. "I just wanted to say thank you for letting me be here." Serena studied him for a moment before responding. "You've come a long way, Dominic. I appreciate the effort you've made, for Liam's sake and for your own." Dominic nodded, the weight of their shared past evident in his expression. "I'm proud of you, Serena. Truly, Serena's success in Paris was more than a personal achievement. It was a victory for her community. Upon returning to Atlanta, she announced plans to expand Heritage by Serena into a social enterprise, employing local artisans and mentoring aspiring designers from underserved communities. The announcement was met with widespread support. Caleb, now fully immersed in the operations, spearheaded the architectural design for a new studio in Sweet Auburn, ensuring the space reflected the brand's values of sustainability and inclusivity. Liam, inspired by his mother's accomplishments, decided to create a project for his school's Heritage Day. He crafted a presentation titled, "My Mom, the Fashion Trailblazer," complete with photos from Paris and snippets of her designs. On the day of the presentation, Dominic surprised Liam by attending, sitting proudly in the audience. When Liam spotted him, he grinned and gave a thumbs up, a gesture that spoke volumes about their evolving relationship. Sweet Auburn celebrated Serena's achievements with a block party, complete with music, food, and a mini fashion show featuring her designs. Serena took the stage to address the crowd, her voice steady but emotional. "This isn't just my success," she said. "It's ours. Sweet Auburn is my foundation, and I promise to carry its spirit with me wherever I go." The crowd erupted into cheers, their pride in Serena palpable. The chapter closes with a tender moment between Serena, Caleb, and Liam. They sit on the porch of their home, watching the sunset and reflecting on the journey that brought them here. "Do you think this is the end of our story?" Liam asked. Caleb chuckled. "Not even close. This is just the beginning." Serena smiled, pulling Liam close. "As long as we're together, we can handle anything." The scene fades to black, leaving readers with a sense of hope and anticipation for what lies ahead. Dominic Hayes had always imagined himself as an untouchable titan, but as he packed his belongings in his modest apartment, he felt a deep sense of peace. The man who once ruled Silicon Valley with unrelenting ambition had chosen a simpler path. Quietly, he stepped away from the limelight, dedicating his life to philanthropy and quietly supporting causes that echoed Serena's values. Dominic's days now revolved around mentoring troubled teens at a community center. The work was humbling and fulfilling, but his deepest joy came from the moments he spent with Liam. While their relationship had begun tentatively, it had blossomed into a meaningful bond, built on honesty and effort. Heritage by Serena was no longer just a clothing brand. It had become a movement. Serena's dream of creating opportunities for others had materialized in ways she never imagined. The new Sweet Auburn studio, buzzing with energy and creativity, was the heart of a network that supported local artisans and young designers. Serena had also established the Roots and Wings Foundation, a nonprofit focused on empowering women and single parents through skill-building programs and financial support. The foundation became a beacon of hope, not just in Atlanta, but across the country. Serena and Caleb, now happily married, found joy in the everyday moments of family life. Their home was filled with laughter and love, with Liam at the center of it all. As he grew, Liam's natural curiosity and compassion reminded Serena of the journey they had shared and the strength they had gained along the way. One evening, as they gathered for dinner, Liam shared an idea that left Serena and Caleb speechless. "I want to help kids like me," Liam said earnestly. "Kids who feel lost or scared. Can we make a program for them too?" Serena exchanged a proud look with Caleb. "Liam, I think that's a wonderful idea. You're already inspiring others just by being you." Serena's influence reached new heights when she was invited to speak at the United Nations. The invitation was a recognition of her efforts to combine fashion, sustainability, and social impact. As she prepared her speech, She reflected on the long, arduous road that had brought her here. On the day of the event, Serena stood on the global stage, her heart pounding but her voice steady. She spoke of resilience, community, and the power of transformation. My journey began in Sweet Auburn, a place where history and hope intertwine. It was there that I learned the true meaning of strength, not just the strength to rise, but the strength to lift others as you rise. The audience erupted in applause, and Serena's eyes searched the crowd for the familiar faces of her family. Liam waved enthusiastically, and Caleb gave her a thumbs up. Even Dominic was there, his expression one of quiet pride. Dominic's path of redemption was not without challenges, but his commitment never wavered. Through his work with the community center, he had helped dozens of young people find direction and purpose. His connection with Liam had become a cornerstone of his life, and he often marveled at the boy's wisdom and kindness. One day, while helping Liam with a school project, Dominic asked, "Do you ever think about what you want to be when you grow up?" Liam smiled thoughtfully. "I want to be like Mom, and a little like you too." Dominic's heart swelled with emotion. "That's the best thing I could ever hear." The Roots and Wings Foundation's annual gala was a resounding success, bringing together supporters, beneficiaries, and community members to celebrate their collective achievements. The highlight of the evening was a video presentation showcasing the impact of Serena's work. As the lights dimmed and the video played, the room filled with stories of lives transformed. Single mothers starting businesses, young designers finding their voice, and families rebuilding after hardship. The video ended with a message from Liam. "My mom taught me that no matter how hard life gets, there's always a way to move forward. And my dad showed me that it's never too late to make things right." Together, they taught me the true meaning of love and forgiveness. The audience erupted into applause. Many moved to tears. As the gala wound down, Serena found a quiet moment to herself on the balcony. The city lights sparkled below, a reminder of how far she had come. Caleb joined her, wrapping his arms around her shoulders. "You've built something incredible," he said. "And it's just the beginning." Serena smiled. "It's not just me. It's us. All of us." Nearby, Dominic watched Serena and Caleb with a mix of gratitude and acceptance. He had come to terms with his role in their lives, a role that no longer revolved around control, but contribution. The following week, Liam stood in front of his classmates, delivering a heartfelt speech for his school's community project day. "My mom is a fashion designer, but she's also a fighter. My dad is a mentor, but he's also a learner. And together, they've shown me that life isn't about being perfect. It's about being better." His words, wise beyond his years, left the room in awe. When he finished, his teacher approached Serena and Caleb, saying, "You've raised an extraordinary young man." The story concludes with a family gathering in Sweet Auburn, surrounded by the vibrant community that had been Serena's foundation. As they share stories and laughter, Liam looks up at Serena and asks, "Do you think we'll always have a happy ending?" Serena smiles, her eyes shining with love. "As long as we have each other, Liam, every ending will be happy." The scene fades with the sound of laughter and music, leaving a legacy of love, resilience, and redemption that will inspire generations to come. As Serena's journey reminds us, life is about resilience, love, and the power of second chances. What part of her story moved you the most? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. And this is just one of many inspiring stories we have in store. Make sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a new chapter. Together, let's explore more stories that inspire, heal, and connect us all. See you next time.